そのリーダーシップっていうのは、どういうことがリーダーシップだと、アビゲイルさん思うのかっていうことについても教えていただいてもいいですか？
Yeah, that's a good question. I like to think about leadership in terms of um, bringing the best of ourselves to the work that we do in the world. So, of course, there's positions of leadership that we can have. There's qualities of leadership that we can express in our behaviors with one another. And so, in that sense, I think everybody can develop and cultivate leadership. Not everybody holds positions of leadership, but we can bring the best of ourselves to our relationships and to our work in the world. And ideally, in service of greater justice, equity, and flourishing for all of life. So, if I recognize that, I have the possibility to be a positive force in the world and I cultivate my capacities to deepen my impact, but also be conscious of my blind spots and my limitations, then that is my own, I suppose, in a way, definition of leadership.
面白いです。なんか日本でも例えばサーバントリーダーシップとか、いろいろ本は出てるんですけれども、やはりその3.5とか4.0グリーンぐらいまでの、リーダーシップしか多分、巷の情報では得られないと思うんですよね。で、日本でも、ティール組織のフレデリック・ラルーの本が出て、話題になってるんですけれども、実際に、じゃあこれ、リーダーシップとしてはどうやって発揮すればいいんだろう。ホールネスとか全体性が大切とか、存在目的が大切とか、パーパスが大切とか言うんですけれども、実際にそれどうやるのかってことを多分みんなあまりよくわからないと思ってると思うんですけども、あの、アビゲイルさんはそういうことについて、もう、そのティール段階の、リーダーシップっていうのは何なのかとか、そういうことまでも、こう伝えてってるってことなんでしょうか。
I think, from an integral perspective, sometimes people talk about growing up, waking up, showing up, cleaning up, and I believe somebody has added a fifth, which is teaming up. And I like that framework because it speaks to so many different elements. I think of what it means to be a leader. The growing up is our developmental maturity. Our waking up is, waking through states of awareness, and then the cleaning up is the shadow work. The teaming up is how we are in relationship with one another. And so I think if we attend to those multiple dimensions of just who we are in any one moment, then we have a greater capacity to express our leadership and potentially to, collaborate well with others to create transformative change. And any one of those elements left out is probably leaving out a really important piece. We can have mature organizational structures such as a teal organization, but have individuals who are not conscious of their own limitations or blind spots, the ways that they might negatively impact one another or the work. And conversely, we can have late stage leaders, but have early stage organizations, and that also makes it very difficult to fully express oneself. And so clearly, in terms of thinking about like more teal or strategist leadership, we um, we need the interaction of those two. We need the organizational structures as well as the capacity of the individuals to be coherent with one another, or even potentially to be able to co-evolve. And we as humanity have a lot to learn about this. I think we know that there are not very that structurally as well as developmentally are able to embody these capacities. So sometimes we talk about there's a that humans are 10-foot tall beings in rooms with 5-foot tall ceilings. So that means that how we are able to express ourselves is a little bit limited by the maturity of the collectives that we're in. And so that is already a paradox. But I also think it's an opportunity. I mean, I think we're again, we as humanity are exploring how do we create these later stage organizations and developmental collectives so that we can liberate each other, which means that we can also then potentially address some of the global challenges that we're facing. And so our future, I believe, depends on our abilities to do this. And something that we work with in generating transformative change is that very dynamic of how we create a collective and then the collective creates us. So how can we create collectives in a way where we're working with the habit patterns in a way that start to liberate each other rather than limit each other's development? And I think it's a natural human tendency to set up a relational agreement that then becomes limiting. So then we have to be able to in the moment name, when we do this with each other, it has this outcome. So could we get curious and come up with a new way of interacting such that we're we're generating or cultivating the best from both of us or from the collective as a whole. So this is, I think of it as sort of an evolutionary edge for humans, and great learning is available to us as we can be conscious while we're engaging with, these growing edges. Not easy, but worthwhile.
すごいことをやってるなと思います。